Hey everyone, welcome back to Apollo Art Analysis. In today's episode, we're going to be studying a piece by the career multidisciplinary artist known as Will Toulan, and in this episode, we're going to be looking at the mix of the biological and the mechanical. We're also going to explore the endless cosmic cycle known as Ouroboros. So let's jump right into it. So at first sight, we're met with what appears to be a serpent set in center on this massive radial disc. It's hard not to feel a sense of awe due to the mystical masterpiece before us. Of course, the placement in space here is pretty interesting, right? It feels like everything revolves around the center disk quite symbolically. We see this further reinforced by a diverse range of layers, right? Especially this one. Of course, it's elevated and closest to us, so it's going to draw our attention due to that placement as well. You may also notice how the colors within this composition really consist of gray and blue here, right? We do have some red or kind of orangish molten flares, but the two main colors are going to be this gray, kind of like a greenish gray, and this blue here. Of course, due to that rarity, it draws our eye within the composition and of course elevates symbolically that serpent on that disc there. And you may also notice a sense of texture here, right? We see this primarily on, say, the mechanical tubing, but we also see that especially on our serpent's form. Of course, it immerses us so well within this work, but also introduces a sense of visual energy. I think that's pretty important here. I wanted to ask you guys, how do y'all feel when you view this piece? And of course, we see what appears to be radial symmetry here, right? You see, of course, everything revolves around the set and center, like we said earlier, but there's also this kind of translucent border that's hard to make out in the first impression, but at the end of the day, it always draws the eye in time and time again. And we see what appears to be a serpent or snake set in center, right? But despite this, the serpent is in the act of eating its own tail. And so the title of this work as Ouro/Boros instantly reveals a symbolism in this sacred scene. The Ouroboros is an ancient symbol which denotes the endless cosmic cycle of a multitude of things, but primarily life and death. But it could be attributed to things like chaos and order. There's so many different things you could cite within the context of the sacred symbol of the Ouroboros. And of course, most people cite the origins of the Ouroboros to ancient Egypt, and I think that's pretty necessary, right? We see this quite clearly. Of course, the head, the tail, and it's in the act of consuming itself. So this symbol, of course, we know when we see ancient symbols created, they likely predate that even further, right? We have what we call oral storytelling. So the concept of the Ouroboros likely predates that. And this was just the first time, or at least what we see as the first origin to create a kind of visually symbolic and concrete language. So that's pretty interesting. Of course, we can credit that to the origins of the Egyptians there. And of course, here's another example of the Ouroboros. You can see this is much more defined, much more serpent-like, and of course is much more developed than the original origin, but that was ancient, right? So of course, due to that, this is going to be more developed. And of course, just like most symbols, the Ouroboros permeated across the globe, right? We see the Ouroboros everywhere from Asia to the Baltics and beyond. So that's incredibly important, and it really provides a testament to the universal nature of this symbolism as well. And of course, we see it glowing, right? That gives a sense of the sacred. It gives a sense of the divine, or say the biological, if you will, as well. But there are a few things guaranteed in life. One is the passage of time, and the other is death. And of course, the Ouroboros reminds us of that, right? We are born from chaos, but eventually order is disintegrated back into chaos. So we return to that cycle as well. So when our time comes to die, of course, we must go without a fight. We must join the endless cycle of the cosmos and kind of feel a sense of reverence that we will return to that eternal cosmic dance. I think that's incredibly important here. Of course, we do die, but eventually our spirits are reborn in some way or another here. And the work before us is part of a greater series that Toulan created really over the course of spring of 2022. And I absolutely loved this piece whenever I first saw it. It just floored me. And this was really right around the time I started this VR series, so that's pretty interesting. Of course, this was created around spring of 2022. You can see the use of kind of animalistic skulls, but that is combined with the industrial. So we have the intersection of biology, of life, with the mechanical and the industrial. You could draw so many different metaphors from that, especially the cyborg, right? We live inside technology. It is native to our being nowadays. And of course, I think this series does an amazing job of capturing that. Of course, in both instances, you have that wiring, you have that tubing, that sense of energy, but you also have some skeletons in some way or another. This, really reminds of a deer skull, while this, of course, is the serpent. So I just want to bring that in real quick, talk a bit about that series. I don't think that series has a title, but there are about, say, about 30 pieces within that series, and it's absolutely stunning. I'd love to see it. This was right before Will Toulan made his foray into the world of AI generative art. So, like I said, we absolutely love to see it, and I just want to bring that in real quick to talk about the greater series which this work belongs to. And the work before us is a digital render. Of course, it is highly realistic, and the program used here is going to be Cinema 4D. Of course, a very professional program. I know everyone from, of course, Will Toulan to Future Self, Beeple, so many artists are using Cinema 4D to create their works. Of course, it's not open source like Blender, but there must be a reason why people use Cinema 4D. So if you're using Blender, you want to experiment with another program, check out Cinema 4D. You pretty much have nothing to lose, right? Of course, you can always go back to the original if you don't really like it, but really hope you'll enjoy today. Of course, this is a sacred and ancient symbol. There is no doubt about that. We talked about so many different things, from this sense of visual energy here, of course, this series which this may belong to. We talked about the kind of radial disc, that sense of the sacred. We talked about the intersection of the biological and the mechanical. So many different things we hit on today. I really hope y'all enjoyed. If y'all enjoyed today's episode, make sure to check out the original artist Will Toulan, really doing some amazing stuff in multiple different mediums. Of course, digital render, AI generative, so many different mediums he works with. So there's so many different ways to discover this artist and really appreciate their work. So like I said, if y'all enjoyed, go check out the original artist Will Toulan. My name's Apollo. This was Apollo Art Analysis, and I'll see y'all on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to support our work directly, please check out our Apollo community tokens. Apollo Art Exchange is an ecosystem of art appreciation which elevates artists each and every day. Thanks for listening.